Thank you for joining us for the Envision Jamestown background research presentation. To begin the presentation, first let's orient ourselves to the study area. In dark blue on the map is the town limits of the town of Jamestown. The gray area, outlined with a dashed line, is the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction. This is the study area for the Envision Jamestown Comprehensive Plan. The first portion of the presentation will be looking at some demographic characteristics about the town of Jamestown. Looking at the town's historic population growth, we see that in 1970, right about 50 years ago, Jamestown had a population of around 1,300 residents. Over the past 50 years, it has grown fairly steadily, up to a population of an estimated 4,007 residents according to the 2018 American Community Survey. While there is no official future population estimate for the town of Jamestown, we see from this chart, according to the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management, that Guilford County as a whole is expected to grow from a current population of around 550,000 to nearly 650,000 over the next 20 years. This chart compares the rate of population growth between Jamestown, the state of North Carolina, Guilford County as a whole, its neighboring larger communities of High Point and Greensboro, as well as a few peer communities in the region. Even though Jamestown is the smallest community listed in this chart, its rate of population change between 2010 and today has been greater than the others in the region except for the town of Elon. This chart is a population pyramid. It shows the relative distribution of the town of Jamestown's population by age group. We see that it's fairly well balanced among all the age groups except for the 45 to 54-year-old cohort, which is relatively double in size of the other age groups. This likely corresponds to people moving to the town when there was a significant amount of housing growth. This chart provides some more statistical detail about the distribution of the population by age group in Jamestown. Of particular note, we see that Jamestown's population of residents under the age of 5 is only 1.5% of the population, while the share in Guilford County and the state of North Carolina as a whole is closer to 6%. Interestingly, the age cohort of 5 to 19-year-olds is much more in line with the state and county population distributions in that age group. We do see that the 45 to 64-year-old age group as well, at about 1/3 of the population, is somewhat higher than the share in the county and the state as a whole. This chart shows the median age of the population of the town of Jamestown. At 46.7 years old, it is much higher than the state and county median ages. It is also higher than the other neighboring larger communities in the region, as well as regional peer communities. This slide provides some information about the distribution of households and their characteristics in Jamestown. Around 1/4 of the population lives alone, while about 1/4 is comprised of families with children. Of seniors over the age of 65, around 8% live alone. Next, we'll look at some educational characteristics of the town's population. This chart shows the educational attainment of Jamestown's population who are over the age of 25 years. We see that almost 30% of the town's population has a bachelor's degree, while close to 20% has a graduate or professional degree. Overall, nearly 75% of the population has at least some college education. Looking at Jamestown's educational attainment in comparison to the state, Guilford County, and its larger neighbors High Point and Greensboro, we see that the share of the population with a bachelor's degree and with a graduate or professional degree is much higher than those other geographies. This chart just provides some additional perspective about Jamestown's high degree of educational attainment, showing those residents with a bachelor's degree or higher as compared to the state, Guilford County, the city of High Point, and the city of Greensboro. Next, we'll take a look at some employment characteristics for the town of Jamestown's population. It should be noted that, along with most of the other data in this presentation having to do with demographic characteristics, it comes from the 2018 U.S. Census American Community Survey, and so it's a couple years old, but it provides some insight into how things were at that time. This first slide looks at labor force participation rates. We see that Jamestown's labor force participation rate at around 63% is fairly well in line with that found in Guilford County and the state of North Carolina as a whole. The chart on this slide shows the distribution of jobs held by residents of Jamestown broken down by industry sector. Among Jamestown's nearly 2,000 workers, the top industry sectors represented were education and healthcare, along with the retail trade. These were followed closely by jobs in the manufacturing sector, hospitality and entertainment, and professional administrative services. Location quotient is a statistical value that measures the number of jobs in a community as compared to the average number of jobs in a particular sector in the average community across the country. When the location quotient is above 1, a community is more specialized in that sector. We see in the chart that Guilford County specializes in a few industry sectors, particularly transportation-related jobs, manufacturing, wholesaling, management, and administrative services. As a generally urban county, Guilford County has very low degrees of specialization in extractive industries such as agriculture and mining. Like the employment location quotient, the wage location quotient indicates which sectors are responsible for larger shares of wage income in a community as compared to the average county in the country. The chart shows that the transportation and manufacturing sectors are responsible for significantly higher wages in Guilford County, as well as being responsible for a generally larger share of employment. This chart shows the place of work of employed residents in the town of Jamestown. Around 80% work inside of Guilford County, while 20% go outside of the county for employment. This map shows the general location by census block group of where Jamestown's residents go to their place of employment. We see there's a large cluster of employment around the airport where Jamestown residents work, as well as a large cluster around downtown Greensboro, a large cluster in High Point, as well as on the west side of Winston-Salem. Around half of Jamestown's residents travel less than 10 miles to go to their place of employment, while around 20% go greater than 50 miles. This next map shows the residence location of workers who travel to Jamestown for employment. The spatial distribution of residence location is fairly widespread in the region, with no significant clusters standing out. It should be noted that although GTCC is not within the town limits, this data does include employees of the community college due to the way that census data is reported. Again, we look at about half of the employees who work in Jamestown coming from less than 10 miles away, and another 10% who are traveling greater than 50 miles to get to a job in Jamestown. Data related to the means of travel to work for employed residents of the town showed that around 85% of workers drove alone, while around 5% carpooled. Of particular note, nearly 9% of employed residents work from home. With commutes under 20 minutes, Jamestown's residents have a somewhat shorter drive to work than the average worker in Guilford County, and a 5-minute shorter commute than the average worker in the state of North Carolina as a whole. Finally, we'll take a look at some household and per capita income statistics. While median household income in Jamestown was well above the median for the state and Guilford County in 2018, the census data show that there was a fairly significant decline between 2010 and 2018, equal to nearly 30% of income. This is most likely due to members of the higher income households moving into retirement, where annual income is typically much lower. Jamestown's per capita income in 2018 was also much higher than that of the state, Guilford County, as well as its neighbors and regional peers. Interestingly, while there was a decrease in Jamestown's per capita income over that period as well, it was much less than the decrease in median household income. In this next section of the presentation, we'll be looking at data pertaining to housing in Jamestown. At $222,000, the median home value in Jamestown is significantly higher than the median value in Guilford County as well as the state as a whole. Among its neighbors and regional peers, Jamestown has a higher value than Greensboro and High Point, while it is generally in line with those found in its regional peers of Clemens and Elon. This next slide shows the distribution of Jamestown's housing stock by when it was built. We see that the prime period for housing growth in the community was the 40-year period beginning in 1960 and ending in 2000. Following 2000, most likely due to the financial crisis in the mid-2000s, housing construction has dropped off fairly significantly. Jamestown has just over 1,700 housing units in the town limits. Of these, around 3/4 are single-family dwellings, while the remaining 25% are multifamily dwellings. This next slide shows the rate of owner versus renter occupancy in Jamestown as compared to the state, Guilford County, and its larger neighbors of Greensboro and High Point. Of significant note, we see that Jamestown has a very high homeownership rate of 73%. This is significantly higher than the rate in the state as a whole, as well as Guilford County. Jamestown also has a very low housing vacancy rate, with under 4% of homes in town unoccupied. This provides significant support for home values in town, and the high ownership rate, in turn, supports the low vacancy rate. Generally, a vacancy rate at this level would indicate a potential demand for new housing. In this next section of the presentation, we'll be looking at some information about land use in Jamestown. This first map shows the generalized existing land use pattern in Jamestown. This data is derived from Guilford County tax appraisal data. Making up the largest share of land, particularly inside the corporate limits of the town, are residential land uses, shown in yellow on the map. Office and institutional land uses occupy a significant portion of the community, with several schools and churches in town, and of course GTCC's main campus just outside of the town limits in the ETJ. Shown in purple on the map are industrial land uses. These more intensively used areas are generally located along the railroad, with the notable exception of the former Oakdale Cotton Mill property on the Deep River in the southern part of the town. Commercial land uses are generally concentrated along the portion of Main Street from Guilford Road west toward the High Point city limits, including Jamestown's historic downtown. The town limits in ETJ also include several large tracts of agricultural land, recreational land, and undeveloped property, notably Jamestown's golf course and park on the west side of City Lake, and the Johnson Farm on Guilford College Road. Jamestown's zoning map and associated land use ordinances regulate the use and development of land within the town and its ETJ. In general, most land in town is zoned according to its current use, with the exception of larger residential tracts, which are generally zoned with the agricultural district. The next couple of slides show some maps from Jamestown's 2007 Comprehensive Plan. This provides some additional perspective on how adopted policies have influenced growth in the community over the last decade. This first map shows the town's general growth strategy, with areas in the red color designated as the primary growth areas, yellow as the secondary growth area, and orange designating existing adjacent developed areas with town utility services. The map on this slide shows the more detailed future land use strategy from the 2007 Comprehensive Plan. The orange color denotes suburban residential development, which occupies most of the developed and undeveloped land in the community. Of note on this map are some commercial nodes, shown in pink, that were designated on the east side of town in preparation for construction of the bypass. Since the current plan's adoption, these maps have helped to guide the town council, planning board, and town staff in the implementation of the town's land use policies. Once adopted, the new plan and its future land use strategy will supersede these maps. Next, we'll take a look at Jamestown's significant historic resources. This map shows the location of the historic resources that exist in town and the surrounding area. The dots on the map represent the 26 historic sites listed on the slide. In addition to the individual sites and buildings, Jamestown also has two historic districts: the Jamestown National Register District that runs along Main Street from near Oakdale Road to just west of Scientific Street and covers downtown Jamestown as well as historic sites close to the Deep River. The second district is the Oakdale Cotton Mill National Register District in southern Jamestown on the Deep River, which covers the mill as well as the adjacent mill village. This next set of slides will discuss Jamestown's transportation infrastructure. This first map shows the extent of the transportation network that serves Jamestown, including roads, pedestrian facilities, and the railroad. Of particular note, the railroad has a significant influence on both transportation and land use in Jamestown. With limited crossing locations and only one grade-separated crossing at Main Street, the railroad limits opportunities for efficient movement between the northern and southern parts of the town. This next map shows the location of vehicular crashes in and around Jamestown from 2014 until 2018. Several Main Street intersections show up as hotspots, including the Penny Road, Dillon Road, and Oakdale Road intersections. The town's other main thoroughfare, Guilford College Road, also had a number of intersections with multiple crashes, including the Mackey Road, Guilford Road, and Gate City Boulevard intersections. Incidents involving pedestrians in Jamestown between 2013 and 2017 were clustered heavily along the section of Main Street from Oakdale Road to the Guilford Road intersection. The area on and around GTCC's campus and Ragsdale High School was also an area of concern. Crashes between motorists and bicyclists were not as prevalent as pedestrian crashes over that time period, with bike crashes more scattered throughout the jurisdiction. Guilford College Road does stand out, however, with several crashes along that corridor. This map shows the projects that are currently included and theoretically funded in the NCDOT State Transportation Improvement Plan. These projects include the completion of the bypass, improvements to Gate City Boulevard, as well as sidewalk projects on Main Street, Oakdale Road, and Penny Road. In 2010, Jamestown adopted a pedestrian plan, and this map shows the projects that were recommended for implementation. This includes both sidewalks as well as trails. Notably, several of these projects are being funded by the state, and a major recommendation of the plan, an improved pedestrian crossing of the City Lake on East Fork Road, was recently completed with the opening of the new pedestrian bridge. These slides will look at Jamestown's utility infrastructure. This first map shows the town's wastewater collection system. The sewer system generally serves areas in the Bull Run Creek drainage basin and along the Deep River, with limited sewer availability in the southeastern portion of the ETJ. Since sewer service is necessary for most large-scale or intensive development, its presence or absence can help to predict where future growth may be more likely to occur. Jamestown also operates its own municipal water system, serving customers both inside and outside of the town limits. The water system generally serves the same area as a sewer system, but since water service is less dependent on topography, it is more easily extended to accommodate new development. Thank you for taking the time to review the Envision Jamestown Comprehensive Plan background research presentation. Please feel free to contact us with any questions that you might have, and take a look at the other presentations that we've posted on the website.